While the 2023 NFL Draft felt loaded at the running back position, 2024 was quite the opposite. While there were a couple of big names going into the season, if you would have told me that Jonathan Brooks would be the first running back taken in this year's draft, I would have told you were probably crazy. He looked like a guy who was going to step up and be decent, but by no means was he going to be the number one running back as a rookie. There was just no way. But that is exactly what would happen. Jonathan Brooks would step into the hole left by Bijan Robinson, would help elevate the team, had a huge year, and I guess showed enough to NFL scouts that he was worthy of being the first ball carrier taken in this year's draft. But this guy not only is a great player, but he also has a super inspiring story, and somehow he went from a backup running back at Texas that no one really talked about to now a promising rookie. So today we're going to talk about the story of Jonathan Brooks, how all this happened, and how he could fit with the Carolina Panthers. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Jonathan Brooks. In order to understand how Brooks got to this point, we first need to go back in time. Jonathan was born in Hallettsville, Texas, and this is a town with only 3,000 people. He ended up being born in 2003 and loved football and all sports from a young age. His first love was basketball, as he actually played for the Hallettsville Brahmas and was a very good player for them. He became a first-team all-district player once he was there, but it was clear early on that while he liked basketball, Jonathan's best sport would be football. But as a freshman at Hallettsville in 2017, Jonathan carried the ball 30 times and turned that into 140 yards and 3 touchdowns while averaging nearly 5 yards per carry. He played both running back and DB for the Brahmas, but didn't find much success with the varsity squad. He was kind of just like everybody else. As a sophomore in 2018, Jonathan made more of an impact on varsity. He carried the ball 117 times for 823 yards and 9 scores, while also catching 23 passes out of the backfield for 461 yards. This would be enough for him to earn a Texas District 15 3A D1 first team selection. That was a lot to say. The next year in 2019, his role in the offense would increase. He ended up running for 2,144 yards and 38 touchdowns. He was also once again a threat outside the backfield, catching 18 passes for 299 yards and a score there. This time he was a District 3A overall MVP, led Hallettsville to an 11-3 record, and also a state quarterfinal berth. His high school coach was amazed at how good he had gotten in just a few years. He said, quote, "I've been doing this for 33 years, and I've never had a running back like Jonathan Brooks. I've had a lot of tough young men and a lot of guys that could run, but John just has that vision and has a lot of heart. He finds a way to get it done when you think there's absolutely nothing there." Because of this, his monster junior year led him to getting a couple of offers, but despite how good he was at playing, none of them were from major programs, except for his first scholarship offer from the Texas Longhorns. Soon after that, he got his second from Texas Tech, and right now the Big 12 really wanted him. His other offers included Texas State, UTSA, Colorado State, and Houston Baptist. But Texas, and specifically the running backs coach Stan Drayton, really thought that there'd be something special with him. Drayton would eventually leave to take the Temple head coaching job, but at the time, he decided to commit to the Longhorns before his senior year, and this commitment was really going under the radar. He said, quote, "I didn't have a lot of offers, only 7 of them. Texas felt like the right place. I was looking at all the schools that offered me and wanted to make a decision this spring. Texas was the school that believed in me." He proved Texas right during his senior year at Hallettsville, as in 2020, he managed to put up an insane 3,530 yards with 62 touchdowns. Honestly, I can't even believe those numbers. This has to be a video game. He also ended up catching 17 passes out of the backfield for over 300 yards and 3 more scores. Literally, everyone knew Brooks was going to get the ball, but he still managed to completely dominate. He averaged 12 yards per carry and 19 yards per catch, which meant pretty much every time he touched the ball, he averaged a first down. Hallettsville went 13-3 and finished as the Texas State runner-up, losing in the state championship game. He eventually set the 3A Texas State record with 299 rushing yards in one game and also had 7 touchdowns in another. This passed Cedric Benson on the all-time Texas high school rushing leaders list, and Jonathan Brooks was in elite company. He finished his insane high school career at Hallettsville with over 6,637 yards and 112 rushing touchdowns. He also caught over 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns on just 59 catches, and his jersey number of 25 was eventually retired by Hallettsville. By the time he was a senior, he was rated as a 4-star recruit in the class of 2021 and the number 25 overall running back. He was named a top 10 finalist for Dave Campbell's Mr. Texas High School Football Player and was selected to the Texas Max Preps All-State team. He's also part of one of Texas's greatest recruiting classes in recent memory and came along with new head coach Steve Sarkisian to replace Tom Herman. Jonathan was set to be part of a special Longhorns team in the future, but how would he end up doing in Austin? When Brooks would arrive at Texas, he entered a stacked running back room that already featured Bijan Robinson, Keontae Ingram, and Roschon Johnson. All three of those guys became NFL running backs and were drafted, and that was quite the room to learn from and battle out and practice with. It was going to be nearly impossible for him to find playing time, and there were some that worried in the Longhorn media that they would actually lose Brooks to the transfer portal. Instead, he decided to redshirt, playing in just 4 games, carrying the ball 21 times for 143 yards and a touchdown. He made his Longhorn debut against Rice in a blowout, and then had spot duty in 3 other games. He originally took a backseat to Bijan and Ingram, and the Longhorns would go 5-7 in year 1 under Sarkisian. Many were very disappointed, but Brooks was pretty happy with himself based on the situation he was in. The next year in 2022, his redshirt freshman year, Keontae Ingram would transfer to USC. It looked more and more likely that he would see the field, but the downside would be that the coach that he really vibed with left. As I said earlier, the running backs coach Steve Drayton ended up taking the head coaching job at Temple. Texas decided to replace him with up-and-coming coach Tashard Choice, and Brooks decided to stick around and vibe with him instead. In 2022, Brooks would play in 7 games for the Longhorns, all in mop-up duty behind Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson. He carried the ball 30 times for just under 200 yards and 5 touchdowns, while also adding 37 yards through the air. And his first taste of being a bell cow running back would come in the Alamo Bowl against Washington. He added a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown in that game, and he looked to reboot for the 2023 season. But after this, he'd have a very difficult time. He ended up having to get surgery for a hernia he had in spring camp, and he got some even more difficult news as his father would pass away on Monday, March 28th of 2022. Obviously, this was before the season even started, but this sort of just happened suddenly, and it absolutely killed him. I can't even imagine losing him. He said that he would honor him with every game and every single touchdown. Every time he reached the end zone, he taps his right wrist, or he has a tattoo that signifies him. I truly cannot imagine what he was going through, but now Brooks would get an opportunity to be the main guy in 2023 after showing promise in 2022. He would now be the main guy, and now he'd be playing for his dad. He said, quote, "I just really miss whenever I have success, the smile on his face. I think about that every time I score." So as Texas would load up for a big 2023 campaign, Brooks would end up appearing in 10 total games. In their first game against Rice, he had 52 yards. He had 52 yards and a receiving touchdown, and then he had a huge touchdown and a monumental road victory over number 3 Bama. This helped put Texas back on the map, and he would continue on from there dominating. He went for 164 yards in a home victory over Wyoming, and then had 106 yards and 2 touchdowns in a road victory over Baylor. Texas was off to a 4-0 start, and now would have a huge game with number 24 Kansas. Brooks would absolutely elevate his play, as in that game, he'd go for a career-high 218 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 40-14 victory over the number 24 Jayhawks. After that, he would continue his dominant streak, as in a close loss to number 12 Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry, Brooks ended up with 129 yards and a touchdown. From there, he would finish the regular season on a high note, going for nearly 100 yards against both Houston and BYU, and he also punched in a touchdown against the Cougars. From there, he'd finish his final 2 games with over 100 yards and a touchdown and a victory over number 23 Kansas State, and then 100 yards and 2 touchdowns and a very close victory over TCU. But in that game, a very horrible moment happened again. He was hit with another roadblock in his life, as he would end up tearing his ACL against the Horned Frogs. From there, he'd have to watch on the sidelines as Texas tried to make a college football playoff appearance, and eventually they did. They would definitely miss him in the playoff, and Brooks never got a chance to play on the biggest stage of his career. But he actually did enough to warrant a ton of NFL hype. He ended up finishing with 187 carries for 1,139 yards and 11 total touchdowns. Because of this, Brooks had a decision to make. Would he go off to the NFL, or would he recover and come back for one more year? Texas will probably get back to the playoff in 2024, but Brooks decided it was time to go. He entered the 2024 NFL draft pool and was seen as a day 2 pick. During the combine, he said, quote, "I'm weeks into my recovery and I'm just starting to get running. My expected timeline is training camp." To scouts, Brooks was kind of someone who could do everything. He was decisive with his cuts, was super elusive, averaged a great yards per carry, and then when he was in the open field, he was extremely quick, extremely agile, and had a great second and third gear to get big gains. He's also consistent at getting first downs, and he also caught a decent amount of passes outside the backfield. While some worry he doesn't weigh enough, he was considered the number 1 running back prospect in the draft, ahead of guys such as Jalen Wright, Bucky Irving, Trey Benson, and Audric Estime. It was definitely a weak running back class, and normally a guy like Brooks would not be the number 1 guy off the board, but that is exactly what would happen. For For the second straight year, Texas sent the #1 running back to the draft, and he was taken with the 46th overall pick in the second round by the Carolina Panthers. They're apparently super excited for their backfield, as that'll now include Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. While some think the pick was a reach, the Panthers got exactly what they wanted. He's a guy who can pretty much do everything, as he's above average in every category and probably will be durable for a long time. As long as he stays healthy, I think Brooks will be a consistent running back in the NFL, and it's crazy how he got to this point. He's one of the best running backs in Texas high school football history, but never really gets a whole lot of attention. He was stuck behind some other good running backs at Texas, waited his time out, and then when the lights were the brightest, he got screwed and got hurt. He also battled losing his dad, and the guy is a tough dude, and I'll be rooting for him. But what do you guys think? If you're a Panthers or a Texas fan, what do you think of Jonathan Brooks? How do you think he'll do at the NFL? And what rookie should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about Ray Davis. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.